going on, guys? So, hey, check this out. I just had a conversation with somebody who ended up being a really good dude. He's been, I'm going to use the word trolling me on YouTube here. I've been responding to him for about a week now. He's been kind of engaging and leaving multiple comments a day on multiple videos a day, trying to defend IUL, trying to come at it from this perspective so strongly that in fact I thought he was an agent. Well, it turns out he wasn't an agent at all. He was actually a client who was somebody who's looking to get a policy for themselves, and in that journey has been going deep down the path of learning about Index Universal Life. And so finally on one of his comments, I made the comment to him and said, hey, listen, if you want to have a conversation, once again, I thought he was an agent, and you feel like you have the ability to defend IUL, then let's set up a Zoom call, bring your best shot, and I will decimate you, is basically how I put it. That said, got into the conversation with him. He ended up being a really, really good guy. We had a really good conversation and went a lot longer than I thought I would. He was a lot more open-minded than I thought he was gonna be. And I think at the end, he left with a lot more clarity. And I think he's still kind of in this place where he's trying to figure out how to make it work. But at the end of the day, I think now he realizes that it's not exactly what he thought it was in the first place. So I'm excited to share this video. I recorded the conversation. He knew I was recording the conversation. This is not any kind of surprise by any stretch of the imagination. But I'm excited to share this with you. I think it's gonna add a lot of value to a lot of people. The reason I'm sharing this is not to make this guy look bad, because there's nothing about this video that makes him look bad. He's very open-minded, and we had really good conversations. He asked great questions, and I honestly, I love the way his brain works. There's a lot of the way his brain works that I actually respect what he was doing. I respect the questions he asked. I respect the fact that he's trying to figure out how to be creative to make things work. I mean, that's what entrepreneurs do. We try to figure out how to solve problems. And he came at things, honestly, in a couple ways that I'd never heard anybody try to do before, which is really unique. I mean, I do this a lot, and I don't see a lot of people come up with these creative ways to do that. And so I'm excited to go through this. I'm excited to have you see this process and this conversation. I think it's gonna add a lot of value to you. If you have any questions, any comments, comment in the comment section below. And that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell. That way you're notified every time we do this. So let's go. How's it going?
How's it going, man?
Good, man. How are you?
Not bad, not bad. The one and only.
Where do you live?
I'm in North Carolina.
Oh, okay, cool. Whereabouts in? Like Raleigh area or?
Closer to Fort Bragg, Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Oh, okay, cool. So what's happening?
Well, I'm caught up in this pool between whole life and IULs.
Yep.
And I actually done more research than most people have. I know more than most agents about the IUL.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hoping that there is a format, a strategy with the right company that will work. If I lower my expectations a lot, I listen to your videos, but lower my expectations. If it's illustrated at a 5.4, I use an open cap, so I don't worry about the caps going down. I don't count on a high 225% par participation rate. I count on it being lowering around the 140s, 150s, whatever. I count on it going down, so I'm not, overexcited about that. I actually told the agent what to write in the policy. So I took out like 99% of the commission, so it's only like $300 commission. The cash value and the surrender value are the same the first year. I split the face value and the additional death benefit. I created like a split face value and death benefit, additional death benefit, so that the cost of insurance is less, and the additional death benefit falls off age 60. So I max funded. I know you said something about max funding makes it worse, but if I max funded to age 59, and then the additional death benefit falls off, and I go from plan B to plan A, which costs even less, but not paying for the increasing.
Right.
Um, I don't have a cap. I have an uncapped, strong performing, historical performing index. I have the most money possible getting in the market as soon as possible the first year, and thereafter. All that said, listen to your videos. I don't see the problem. I know they can raise the administration fees in
Hmm.
the future,
Hmm.
but again, with lower expectations around the 4.5%, how can that not rate close to that or above that in the future?
Well, so I mean, it's just a function of with. I mean, are you talking FNG? Is that because I think you made a comment about FNG at one point in time?
Well, F&G does have the fixed rate, and F&G has the cap that just got lowered, so that's what made me look at the illustration a little bit different. And I'm thinking about going from, I know you're gonna hate this, from F&G to a national life group policy because
Oh, geez. Yeah, yeah, okay. That's
they
fair.
have a they have a strong uncapped index. They have a low cost of insurance.
Hmm.
Uh, they have a high participation rate, and people are getting, as of today, good
Okay.
rates of return. I know they can be lower,
Hmm.
as I said. So I'm not looking for 7, 8, 9% in the future. I'm not looking for an average of 7, 8, 9%. They'll be a happy surprise. I
Hmm.
know to lower my expectations. I know to think, mediocre. I know this. I know to want. I know to see the hope for mediocre
Are,
performance in the goals.
yeah, no,
So
I
it's not.
get it. Are you an agent or are you just looking to get this for yourself? Or are you kind of getting into the business and looking to get your first policy? Like what give me a little background as to like the context here.
Well, how much time we have?
I got plenty. Actually my morning is wide open. My whole day is pretty clear. It's just a content creation day for me. So,
All right. So I really want you to turn this into something for the people. I'm not an agent,
sure.
so I have nothing to gain from the
Hmm.
sale of any insurance product. I'm
Hmm.
mostly a student, a client. I force myself to learn as much as possible because I feel like I was taken advantage of on my first IUL. So I have the
Okay.
horror story experience where I didn't see the first illustration
Hmm.
from I never saw a proper illustration and never got the actual contract
Mm.
of the insurance through the agent.
Okay.
So that was a really bad story. Like he sent me like he had a Word Excel document. I mean, he actually wrote a book, and he's the author of this book right here. He's on. You see, stupid book.
Stewardship on steroids.
You never heard of this book? He,
No.
he's not a popular YouTube guy. He's kind of older. He's kind of quiet, but he was out with IULs back in 2014, 2015 when it
Okay.
wasn't that popular on social media. And I
Got
had
it.
one 7 years ago. I was healthier. I was in the military, and I was an ideal candidate for IUL back then. But he never showed me a full illustration. What I got was an Excel spreadsheet that was got like 20%. Yeah, he really duped me on that one.
Yeah.
And then the contract pages, he printed out the 3 contract pages. He copied those and emailed them to us. And then so it said something about the contract. And I thought it's what I saw. So I signed those pages, sent them back. He wasn't even contracted to sell us the IUL in that state. He was from Indiana, but there's no, I filed a complaint, got my money back plus 1% interest would cover the cost of insurance.
Hmm.
So everything back minus the cost of insurance. So I mean, I could have been very bitter because the experience probably should have been. And I was with Allianz, which is very expensive.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
7 years later, I kind of like, okay, I need to start making payments. Wife went to school, graduated. She got a career job, so making more money. So we need to get on track. This is our retirement plan. So I called in. I did like 20 illustrations. I tried to match the Word document he sent, and the more money I threw at the Allianz product, even when I went from switching to Plan B because I was in Plan A, which is another story. I was in Plan A level, not Plan B, and I had like 250 face value and like a 500,000 rider.
Hmm.
Um, and the more money I threw at it, just the account just demanded more money. So it ate more money the more money I threw at it because the cost of insurance was just so high that my loans never looked good. I was throwing, I throwing massive amounts of money at it, like 4 or 5 thousand per month, and my loans were like, just like 50,000 because of the cost of insurance with that particular company. So
Hmm.
I understand if you're trying to get loans or retirement income, I know you're against that. Out of it, it can't be with a high cost insurance company to begin with. You need someone that has a lower cost of insurance. Um,
Mm.
and so then after that, I shopped around, talked to a few different agents until I figured out what properly structured was. The lowest death benefit, Plan B to Plan A, non-MEC, uh, soft income, that kind of stuff. I knew all the kind of basic structure. It. I really understand the splitting the face value up with the additional death benefit up for the rider, so I could pay more. But I knew my budget was around $1,000 a month. I knew the max funded, um, and I went for the prettier looking policy illustration, and I should have went for the internally best uh, uh, future, present, and future um, company. So I didn't
Hmm.
think a great uncapped. I mean, F&G has an uncapped, but Barclays is not performing well, and the S&P just dropped from 12
Yeah.
to 12, was it 12% to
I mean,
12.5. So
honestly, in my opinion, the uncapped versus cap conversations is just a bunch of smoke and mirrors in a lot of ways. I mean, think about it this way. Think about it this way. It doesn't. If you have let's just say the S&P 500, for instance, right? And like you can have a capped version. Let's say it's a 12% cap or a 10% cap or whatever it is, and a 0% floor and a 100% participation rate and whatever it is. Like you can have that cap. And okay, fine. A lot of people are saying, well, having a no capped product is going to be a better solution because it gives you years that you have the ability to have higher upside, right? So that'll inject more cash into the policy and so on and so forth. The challenge is this: is that the uncapped versus cap. Here, I'll just do this. Let me just go here. So like, here's the deal. So like, let's just use this example. So let's just say cap and S&P index, S&P 500, and let's just call it a cap of 10%. Let's go the par participation rate of 100%, and then and the floor of 0, right? Which is there. So at the end of the day, okay, you can have, this is a pretty old school, traditional, standardized way that people would run IULs, is just like having a cap rate, having a par rate, and it's really simple. So what's happened is companies have gotten a lot more creative, and they start doing these no capped index. So now they would say there's 0% cap on the S&P 500. So and we have to compare index to index when we're doing this to really understand it, because we could start going to the Barclays or the Mosaic 2 index or the Zebra index. Like there's so many different indexes that will try to run no caps, but there's always a catch to those no cap index. 100% of the time, there's always a catch. When we look at the S&P, like there's things you could say, even 0% cap, 220% par rate, which looks insanely amazing, right? Like if you think about it, if you got a 0% floor and no cap and a 220% participation rate, well, how the hell are they doing that? Because at the end of the day, you look at this, what matters is the S&P 500 here. If you understand the fact that you're paying your premium, right? So you pay your premium, it goes to the insurance company, and that insurance, so it goes to the insurance company, and then that goes, and some will pay for insurance, and some will go into options, right? And so if we know that it's going to go into options, the question is, what kind of options, right? And we know it's going to go by contracts on the S&P 500, right? So it doesn't matter at the end of the day if we're talking about a 10% cap and 100% participation rate, or 0% and 220, which looks way better. I think everybody on paper would look at this and be like, that's the choice 100% of the time, right? Like if you had to choose between the two, it looks much more appealing. But at the end of the day, you're dealing with the same options budget. You're dealing with the same general fund of the life insurance company, which is going to create the options budget. And then you're buying call options on the S&P 500. So to think that one of these indexes is going to perform better than the other long term, is delusional, because you're still buying the same options budget, buying options on the S&P 500. All they're doing with all these different parameters is shifting how it looks on an illustration and shifting the conversation from a sales perspective. It's all smoke and mirrors. Like, that's just the reality. There's no getting around that. And so, like, there's always a hang up. So whenever you go into like an index that has a 0% cap, there's always like what's called a risk-free rate, right? And some call it a spread charge. Sometimes there's a spread charge and a risk-free rate. And that basically, if you really look at it, especially with these ones that have super high participation rates, what happens is they know that there's a cost to buy this return. There's always a cost to buy the S&P 500. And that is, you got to look at, all right, what's our options budget and what's the options cost to buy the S&P 500? There's a Bobby Samuelson at Life Product Review does a great index. It's basically the cost of buying a 10% cap. Well, if you eliminate the cap, which is what these insurance companies have started to do, because over a decade, people started to catch on like, this isn't kind of what we thought it was. So they started being like, oh, let's just eliminate the cap, right? And so in their mind, they're just like, let's just, and I know NLG is one of the biggest perpetrators of this, right? Like, let's just get rid of the cap, because it gives us a different conversation. You can get rid of the cap. It doesn't get rid of the fact that you're using an options budget and buying call options on the S&P 500. And in what world can you put the same equity into the same thing and expect to get a monstrous advantage without the life insurance company going broke? Like, if you use common sense behind that, it just starts to be like, oh, okay, that doesn't make sense. There's always a catch. And in these no cap indexes, what that typically is a risk-free rate that's tucked away. And when you tuck a risk-free rate away, typically what that means is going to be like the first 5% of the index is not going to be noticed or realized by the policyholder. Or, and listen, it's not always a risk-free rate, but it's always something. There's always something in the policy that makes it so it mitigates the risk, because with all that upside comes extra risk. And if you think the life insurance company is going to take that risk off and not pass it to you, I got another thing coming to you. Like, it's not how it works.
I mean, yeah, obviously they're gonna they give and take. There's always a take with what they give you. I sent you the illustration.
Oh, you did?
I don't know if you can pick out the cost or the
let me go pull it up here.
I designed it with you in mind.
Nice. I like it. Okay, let me see what I can do here. Oh, the good old puzzle. Let's see here. And did you do the no cap index on this?
Yes, that's what I asked for.
Okay.
So yeah, but I just basically called them up, told them what I wanted in there. I wanted to change different things, to split up the face value. What else? To kill the additional death benefit in a certain year. And he's like, well, that's, I was like, I'm trying to get the best looking one and lower expectations. So I think he even lowered the weighted rate of return to like a 5.4% or 4 or 5%, something like that. So he dumbed it down a lot.
The weighted average is 6.42 here.
Wait, okay, so what's the illustrated rate?
Illustrated loan rate is 5.7. The illustrated rate is 6.42, which is just nothing about that is conservative.
Okay, that might be the wrong one. Okay,
I see he lowered the face amount significantly, which, okay, that's cool.
There's another one, but the Let me see. Hold on. Let me see.
I will say this, on the scale of IULs in illustration, you did a good job getting the best possible, setup and liquidity and all that stuff out of the gate, which is great.
Yeah, you can see that the cash value and surrender value is the same. You never see that. It's always about the commission with the agents and
Yeah, that part's good. But National Life Group is really good like that. They can do non-commissionable premium. And it's not necessarily like this big rider that hurts your long-term cash value. That is one good thing that they do. Let me just see here. All right, here's what I want to show you something though, even on this where there's a problem. Let's here, let me I gotta download this and open it. I want to show you something. This is really, really important to understand, because even this illustration that you're seeing here is gonna have problems. I don't know if you can see my screen too well. It looks like you're on a phone, so it's gonna be a little tight, but let me
I can pull up my computer. I was trying to
all right.
hope my trading goes well. I won't need an IUL.
Well, so look at this right here. So this is the problem. So once again, you're not going to have a problem with this policy during your savings years, right? Like, so you did a good job. Like, you got a good liquidity, high percentage liquidity, which is fantastic. I think the returns on this with the 6.42% are delusional. I don't think that'll ever happen. But I think if you banked on 5 to 5.2%, you'd be better off. But even that said, like, if it illustrated at 5.2, you're still going to not have any problems at the beginning of this policy. Your problems are going to come into this policy once you start leveraging it for income. Now, I will say this: if you were somebody like me, where you love to utilize these for real estate and businesses and stuff of that nature, like you want to get that money moving. My purpose of having my money in a life insurance policy, it's why I use whole life, is because I want to get that money moving all the time. And the predictability and knowing how that money and the loans are going to be functioning are key. With IUL, when you take an index loan, which is what everybody does, because wash loans just don't make any sense, because then the costs do continue to go up over time, and the cost of insurance does get away from you, no matter what. The older you get, what happens is, your policy loan value is going to go up, and it doesn't work. It's just injecting more risk into the real estate conversation. That's why I'm not a big fan. Now, that's not what you illustrated this for. And so there's a couple things that I want to show here. You say you had this done, so at 60 years old, it goes to a level death benefit, and it goes to a level death benefit. You reduce the cost of insurance as much as possible, right? And
Right.
and therefore, then you're borrowing loans against this for income in retirement. So what I want you to see here is on the mid loan rate, here you're out of money on not even on the guaranteed basis, but on the midline projection, you're out of money at 66 years old. No matter how well you design this thing, you're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years into this, and it's lapsed. And that's assuming that you've had positive years every single year. Remember, this illustration is assuming that the market never had a bad year, right? Like, and it's averaging out, which we could argue about, what that looks like during the accumulation years, whether it's a big deal or not. Flat years, not a huge deal, as long as you're funding it properly, as long as it's, you're letting it accumulate, that's fine. But when you start taking negative years when you're in retirement and you're taking income and you have policy loans, that's a problem, because it's going to inject more risk. So what we have to look at here is, what's the net amount at risk of this policy is the death benefit minus the cash surrender value. Okay.
Okay.
So you're looking at 200 270,000 in net amount at risk in this policy. That is the death benefit net amount at risk there. If you do 1,019,000 minus 757,000,
Right, right,
that's your net amount at risk. Now your accumulated value is there, and the accumulated value minus the loan rate is the cash surrender value, right?
right.
So if you look at that, that's no problem. But the craziest part here, the crazy thing to me is even when you look at this, and this goes to show how well, I'm trying to think of how to put this succinctly. I'll say it this way. Even when I do whole life insurance, okay, the main reason that I love whole life insurance is that I can have control of a whole life policy and I can completely pay up the policy by age 65 or 75, or with any policy, I can choose the reduced paid up option and I can eliminate all insurance fees and costs anytime after year 7. Okay.
Hmm.
That's one of the
What
things that I love about it. Here, I'm going to let you in.
what if
So
I
that's
what if I just okay, two things. I actually built the IUL calculator because the second agent we had would not run unlimited amounts of illustrations. And I get it. He has he has to go out and get commission and make phone calls and get new customers.
sure.
And I can run it to where it looks exactly like the illustration numbers that the agents do.
Hmm.
And I can take it further. I can show myself paying more than the uh, guideline annual premium. I can pay like the non-MEC premium, like the 7-pay premium in the first 2 years.
Hmm.
I really wanted to pay that as much as possible, but after illustrating it myself, I realized I only could do it for like 4.5 years or 5.5 years. I had to take a break, and
Hmm.
that break at half year killed the policy. So I was like, well, what if I just pay? We went from paying 12,000 to 18,856.30 the first 2 years. What I did was I paid the 7-pay the first year.
Hmm.
Second year, took a max loan, added money to that, maxed out the second year, and then took a max loan and put the money in the market to do things with forex, whatever. Forex, you get great returns as long as you're making a profit. Uh, so
Sure.
that being said, I wanted to I I'm planning to play more the first and second year. This was even was illustrated, and then maybe it will get the policy even further along because the goal is you got to get much money as possible so it compounds and compounds. And
Yeah, I mean that's what they tell you. I mean, at the end of the day, because of the guideline level premium, you can pay more than that. You can pay up to the MEC limit, but it's going to reduce what you're able to pay later, right? Like, so you're gonna have to stop and pause and whatever for whatever the situation is, depending on how much you fund it by, how much more, if you fund right up to the MEC limit,
Mhm.
whatever, like I don't know where the numbers are on here, the MEC, but like let's say you put in 30,000 year 1, you're going to be in a situation where maybe you could do 30,000 year 1, 30,000 year 2, but then year 3 and 4 you got to take a break, or it'll be different depending on the numbers that you use, but at the end of the day, the bottom line is you're always going to be limited as to how much you're able to put into this policy, um, from an efficiency perspective. And the idea that you're getting money into it earlier is going to allow it to compound more. I mean, if you it's such a negligible thing. I don't think the benefit is really there because you're going to be leveraging that money. And look, you're borrowing at 5.7%, right? Like that loan rate right there alone. So what does that tell you? Anytime you borrow, if you don't earn more than 5.7%, you're losing money. Like people say you can't lose money due to market risk, due to market loss, but you can lose money because of market loss.
Mhm.
It's a big deal. Like you can lose money. Jamming money into these things is always going to have consequences as far as your ability to fund it. Um, you could argue the flexibility of that is nice, right? Like if you said, "Hey, I've got to put 60 grand in the first 5 years, or maybe 120 grand the first 10 years," Actually, not the first 10. It'll be like during the first 5 years, if you want to overfund 1 year more than another and whatever, that flexibility is nice. That is a benefit that IUL will give you that whole life doesn't provide, really. Whole life isn't as flexible as like if you wanted to, pay 30 grand 1 year in this and then nothing another year. Like that is a benefit that IUL offers. At the same time, the downside of that is that you are going to be restricted as to what you're allowed to put in it after. The real problem here is that this 5.7% loan rate, I mean, whatever, the loan rate is the loan rate. That's not a problem. But when you're borrowing against that loan rate in this policy, in any policy, whenever you have the market performing less than 5.7%, think about it. What does it do? It's an extra cost for whatever that loan amount is, whatever that loan expense is. So right here at year 40, at age 71, you got $900,000 of loans. Now, when you look at this illustration, what are you seeing? You're seeing 6.26%, right? Of growth. So now there is a regulation, and the regulation is the AG 49B, which will make it so you can only illustrate 50 basis points of positive arbitrage. So when you have these loans, you're borrowing at 5.7%. It's assuming 6.2%. I know it says 6.26 there, but it's 6.2% on the borrowed amount. And so because it's 50 basis points higher than that. So it's pretty close. But at the end of the day, this is assuming 50 basis points of positive arbitrage, positive credits in the policy. Yet even with those positive credits, your surrender value is going down every year.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
So what's crazy here is we get to year, 40, and this is assuming that the first 10 years of your retirement, you had no down years. And it's assuming the market's doing as well as they illustrate, which I can tell you it won't, right? Like you could believe me or not. You're obviously an educated guy. You can come to your own conclusions. But like $900,000 here, man. Like, what is that? 50 here. Like, let me just get, that's 51,300 of interest expense. Okay.
Okay.
So
real
go
quick,
ahead.
Another thing the illustrator doesn't show. So I can illustrate, and I think the max you can pay per year is like 16,000 with this illustration. So I'll pay the 16,000 first few years, and you'll see the cash and spending value grow a lot more. And then I'll pay the interest every year on the loan. You can't illustrate that in these. You can illustrate. They can pull it to an Excel spreadsheet and do it. I've seen them do it on the side of an Excel spreadsheet version of it, and so you can manipulate a lot better than the software for the illustration.
Okay.
I can also pay the interest. It's very complicated calculated. Pay the interest. I can see my surrender value grow or shrink based on paying just the interest or paying the interest and continue to pay the premium. So say I want to take out a $75,000 loan, I can use 12,000 of that to pay the policy premium, and the difference I live off of. That makes it a lot more healthier. That solves a lot of those problems with the
But what's the purpose of that? Why wouldn't you just surrender up to cost basis and then do it from there?
So I'm not really sure what that means, but I'm trying to keep the policy healthy and keep the growth healthy, and prevent it from lapsing. Everything you talk about with the 0 years, I can even go in and put 0 years in there. I can map it out to where I take the last 20 years and put it into the illustration, so it doesn't show an average of 6 point whatever. It's going to show exactly what they got the last 20 years. I can overlap that to another 20 years. Overlap that. I can overlap last 20 years all the way out to age 120 and get a more realistic feel of cash value, surrender value. And I can show myself either paying the interest or paying the premium, maybe taking out bigger loans. I can do all that. I can solve those problems.
I love your creativity, man.
Yeah, I thought I put much everything.
What do you do for work? What do you do for work? I gotta ask.
I was in the military for a while, and I got out in 2015. And I kind of bounced around, and then I started really digging into this IUL stuff the last couple of years.
Okay. All right.
So yeah,
So no, it's cool. That's cool. So here's the deal. Like I'm a huge like let's use common sense about all this stuff, right? Like because the thing with IUL, you're not allowed to use third-party calculators. And this is the thing. Like it is non-compliant for anybody to use a third-party calculator to sell these. So anybody selling with an Excel calculator, anybody selling with their proprietary calculators they built online, like Curtis Ray on his MPI bullcrap, like all that, it's illegal. Like
oh, he does it. This guy does it.
I know, they all do it because they're all crooks. Like that's it, you do that. And it's non-compliant, and you do that, and then what happens? People like you that are sophisticated and savvy enough, you get your money back because the insurance company's like, ah, crap, right? They don't want to like they're going to get your money back, and they're just hoping you don't file a claim on top of that, causing a bigger problem. And that's why they give you your money back. They give you hush money. That's what it is. They shut you up because I'll tell you what, these companies deal with more massive lawsuits that they settle and seal in arbitration that you never hear about, that will never be heard about, that you only hear about it when you're behind the scenes. And it's a scary, scary thing. And so like what you're telling me, so let me understand what you're saying. So you're saying you're thinking I'm going to take this $75,000 loan for income, and out of that $75,000 loan, I'm going to earmark some of that money. I'm not going to live off all 75. I'm going to take 12,000 of that. I'm going to pay the premium, and I'm going to take 4,000 of that or whatever it is and pay the interest. And let's assume the numbers work, even though I'm sure I'm not right on the money. But like, let's say 17,000 was your total cost of premium and interest on the loan. You're going to take 75,000. You're going to live off 75 minus the 17,000, the 12 plus the 5, assuming the interest was that. Then and that's going to be your income, and you're going to use that money to then pay the premium and the interest expense to keep both from getting out of line.
Right. It makes it a very, very healthy policy.
Okay.
I see it. Yeah. It solves the problems you mentioned.
All right. I love this. Like nobody's ever brought this to me before, but
I get that all the time. Nobody asked that question.
I love it, bro. I love it, but I've already got the answer.
Okay.
I've already got the answer. And so this is the stuff. How old's your little one? That's awesome.
Good. All over the place. She don't climb up the steps by herself.
Yeah, I feel you.
She has no fear of height or danger of breaking her neck. Hold on, give me 1 second.
Yeah, you're good.
Get your butt in here. Yeah, the second time it's happened, man. I could have been, wife would have killed me. All right, we're good. Now I'm listening. Because that's my best. I just gave you my best shot. I was saving that for last. That's my best shot right there.
All right. Well, here we go. All right. So let's talk about this and use common sense. Okay. So let's look at this policy real tightly. Okay. I'm going to even zoom in a little bit. So this policy at age 59 had $829,000 in cash value, right? Accumulated value. You hadn't taken a loan yet. Okay.
Right.
Then this year you take $75,000 in income. And so 75,000 divided by 829 is what? I'll tell you here. I'm doing it. That's a 9% distribution rate.
Okay. All right. So you're saying that it'll run out?
What's that?
When the money's gonna run out?
Well, no. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the problem. Is that these illustrations, to be able to show you. Well, I'll tell you this. National Life Group has annuities as well. They have fixed index annuities. That the annuities, if you're able to guarantee 6.5% income on their product that is designed to optimize your income, you're getting 6.5 to 7% best case scenario, and that's with the insurance company taking on all the risk, right? So to think that you're going to get 9% is delusional. Now that said, what you've done is you've said, I'm going to take my money and I'm going to say, I'm going to take 75,000, I'm going to minus out 12,000, I'm going to minus out the interest expense, which 75,000 times 0.057, that's 4275. So let's just do the math. 12,000 plus 4275 is 16,275. So 75 minus 16,275. So you're living on 58,072. Fair enough?
Right.
So 58,072 divided by 829 is 7%. So you just get into the place. What you're doing is you're trying to get creative with how you're managing your loans and all this stuff. And what's happening is you're getting yourself to a place where you would get the returns of an indexed annuity. And could it work? Sure, it could. Out of all the craziness I've seen in an IUL space to like actually pull it off and make it work, that's one area. That's one way to do it, where if you were diligent and responsible and handled all that, it could work, potentially. But there's no guarantees behind that working, right?
I mean, I can illustrate it mathematically. I know I'm not selling these, so I'm not.
No. I understand you say you can mathematically illustrate it. But what happens if the market goes down 3, 4, 5 years out of 7 years? Right? When you're in retirement and you're taking that income and you still have to pay the premium, you're going to now have a massive principal drawdown, and it's going to be a problem.
Principal drawdown, you mean?
Draw down on the surrender value of the policy. Because remember, all this is assuming that you have positive years every single year. So like let's just say you start off at this 829 right here, and you're paying it. You're taking this 75, right? And right. You're assuming that you're living on the 75 and you're paying the interest. So like you're living on that $58,000, and the rest is going to pay the expenses and the premiums. Okay, but if you have a zero, this is also assuming that this policy is growing because you have these positive years. So what happens if we go into a decade where we have 3 or 4 or 5 years that are negative, right? And out of those years, you need this income, and the market's negative, and like right here, don't forget, because if this number, that 58,000 number, is assuming, or the cash value at the end of this is assuming that the policy grew by $58,000 or grew by 6.4%, right? And so what happens is your theory of paying the interest and the premium out of this to get the 58,000 of income, and then that the buffer covers all your stuff to keep the policy going, that's still assuming you're positive every single year. Because even in this year, if you were negative, you would have to reduce your cash surrender value number by $58,000 because you didn't have the growth of the policy. Because if this was a zero, this number goes down by the $58,000. Does that make sense?
How often has that happened in the last 20 years or last 40 years?
I mean, how often has that happened? Like, we could have a whole conversation about that. Like, how often has it happened that we have, I mean, the stock market typically, like over the past 30 years, and this is the thing that drives me nuts, 35% of the time it performs worse than this 5.7%. How will it be zero? I don't know. How often will it be zero? I don't know. But I don't know about you. I don't feel super comfortable about the direction of our government and the economy and taxes and inflation and national debt and all these things. And I think we've been living in an artificially inflated bubble, built by monetary policy. And I think when that bubble pops, I think we're going to have 3 to 5 nasty years. Nasty years. That's just my belief.
I
You
don't know.
know,
I
if
don't know.
you,
We don't have much of a government left by then. Maybe a lot of civil wars. A lot of things probably change.
okay. So, I mean, I don't know, right? I have no idea what that all looks like. And bro, we're talking about like 30 years out. Like, who knows what the world's going to look like 30 years from now? You know what I'm saying? Um, there's the one thing I know is that IUL has too many moving parts. And for
Mm-hmm.
me, because of the fact I'm so conservative personally and politically and like economically, and you'll probably hear me say on my videos a lot, the reason I think people fail with money is because they don't align their money with their values and beliefs, right? And to me, a policy like this doesn't align with my values and beliefs because there's too many moving parts, too many levers that can be shifted by the company, too many things that can happen in the economy that are outside of my control. And I want to have like these policies, everybody likes to, especially in the IUL space, they like to like really leverage the fact that these insurance companies have been around for 180 years or whatever. Well, guess what? That doesn't even matter. When you have an IUL, the insurance company is still going to be around. You buy this policy 30 years from now, National Life Group's still going to be around and thriving. That doesn't
Mm-hmm.
mean your policy is going to be doing anything.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? If you have a whole life policy with a participating mutual company, if the company is thriving, you're thriving. And so what I know is that life insurance companies have been the best financial institutions in the world, have weathered every financial storm, have managed the transition of 3 different currencies in the United States. And so for me, in a world where I am worried about what's going on in this country, I don't try to get on my soapbox and tell everybody I know when it's going to happen, that I have any clue when the bottom's going to fall out or when we're going to lose a world's reserve currency status or when it's going to go to the CBDC or when we're going to, really go completely digital. I have no idea. But what I do know is I believe participating mutual companies are going to manage that transition and risk better than anybody else. And by having my money with a whole life policy, they are managing my risk in that. By having it in an IUL, I'm still just a profit center for the company. They have no obligation towards me at all.
I can't argue with that. I learned yeah, all the risk and responsibility is dumped onto the client with the
Right?
IUL.
And but to get back to answer your question, I don't know, man. Like I look at this and it's like, what are the odds? I don't know the odds. Like, but I do know, like, if you think the next 15 years is going to look like the last, 15 years, I would say that I'm not the person to listen to. You know what I mean? Like, I think we've had this artificial bull run. We came out of the Great Recession, and they created quantitative easing 1, 2, 3, 4, and then basically went indefinite with it. They printed trillions and trillions of dollars. We hit the pandemic. We had a crisis. They printed more. They gave more money away for free. Everything we live in right now is artificially inflated. Since 1980, we had this low reducing interest rate environment, right? From 20% all the way down to zero. And then when they hit zero, they kept printing money. That's QE
Mm.
1, 2, and 3. And so that all has to end. And so you don't get addicted to heroin for 45 years and then get off it and not feel the pain. That's just the way it is. This is
Okay,
financial heroin.
right. I have to agree with all that. A part B or C, I can manage my IUL the best I can. Even okay, and what you're saying is true. So I can't beat what you're saying as far as the future. And the IUL is not the best product for the client per se. There's not a lot of protection. You're not participating.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, but what if I delayed the loans, paid the interest, paid extra when I can early in the policy to get my cash value up? I can hit 800 to a million sooner in my cash value and surrender value side before taking loans. It gives me a better chance
Sure.
to take loans later.
Yeah,
Um,
but then the returns and expectations. I guess here's the deal. When people ask me, Chris, why are you so anti-IUL and so pro whole life, is because when you start trying to figure out how you can make the IUL work to mitigate your risk, why not just go with a whole life policy? Because that's what you get. Except for with whole life, you can actually lock in the guarantees.
Man, because for this type of insurance, it's gonna cost you like I mean, it costs a lot more, so I had to get a lot less insurance. How
What?
the cash
What are you
value not
talking
gonna be
about?
so for what is this 300 something thousand? How much is that for whole life?
Hold
And
on
what's
a
the cash
second.
value?
Oh, you want to see?
Man, the numbers I seen from maybe they're just trying to juice it up. I seen some
Well,
horrible.
you're just talking a horrible whole life. Listen, I'll tell you this: there's bad whole life agents and there's bad IUL agents, and so it's like I like everything else aside, like I'm I mean, you know how I feel on IUL in general, but at the end of the day, there are bad whole life agents and there are bad IUL agents. I think even if you structure an IUL policy properly, it's not going to be, you know, it's not going to eliminate the risks and it's not going to be as good as all these guys would like you to think. Um, but you can't eliminate the risk in an IUL with whole life. We're looking at a savings alternative. We can't look at insurance companies to be our investment companies. Like that's not what they do. How old are you?
It'd be my wife, man. She's like 12 years younger. It,
Okay.
her birthday is 8/28, 1989.
8/28, 1989. Okay. And okay, let's go there. Female, North Carolina?
Yes. No, preferred non-smoking.
Yep. Got it. Uh-oh. How many kids do you have? Two or one?
Two right now. That's about enough. Yeah, handful.
And you want to do 12,000 a year, you said.
Yes. If whole life so competitive, why does there even IULs exist at all?
Because life insurance companies wanted to shift the risk away from them to the policyholder. Like
Uh,
period. Because of the low interest rate environment in the mid 2000s, late 2000s, that's when IUL started getting really popular with the Great Recession. All the actuaries started seeing us go into this low interest rate long-term environment, and so they said, "Whoa, we got to do something."
hmm.
That's why you see the big, huge run on IUL getting more and more and more market share. And listen, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this is going to be super sexy and that it's going to just, that it's going to, I don't know the word, it's going to like perform better than your IUL, because it's not going to. The IUL on paper is going to look better 100% of the time. You know what I'm saying? Like it's going to, but the IUL on paper is not reality. You know what I'm saying? And so like that's the thing that I look at. And
So with the
so
whole dividend thing and the IIR being 3% versus the dividend being 8%, he's saying that what's on paper is what the
Well, I'll show you an illustration. I'll show you something I just ran. And mind you, this is not optimized. This is just me running an illustration really quickly for you, right?
because I've read that the IRR is not the same as the dividend, and
Right, that
sometimes
is true. That is true. So, I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, so what we've done here is I've basically reduced the death benefit as much as possible. We have a initial face amount is only $28,906. We had to use a term rider, so you have the total death benefit out of the gate is only 231,000. So your liquidity year one, your net cash value is a little less than this compared to the IUL, because the cost of the insurance and stuff, it's going to be a more flat, right? So you are going to pay more for insurance in the first couple of years. And as time goes on, though, when you hit retirement, that's going to be that's going to be where the difference is. Borrowing against this money while you're actually leveraging it, during your working years, you see it's going to be, you're going to have a lot more control, so to speak, of the costs and the fees and the moving parts behind it. There's not as much risk when you borrow against a whole life policy, because on the negative years, like especially if you're using it for real estate, that's why I always say I don't want to inject more risk into my real estate by borrowing against an IUL with an index loan, because then if the index goes down, when the market goes down, which typically, if the index is going down, a lot of times that means unemployment rates are going up. That means rental payments getting paid are a little bit more at risk. And so what I'm doing by using an IUL is I'm injecting 5.7% more risk into my whole portfolio, as far as like whatever my loan is, right? Because if the market goes down, and then because of that unemployment's high and somebody doesn't pay their rent, well, now on top of not having all that money coming in, now I have more expense in my IUL that I would have to pay. Whereas with whole life, that's not the case. I don't have to manage that risk, right? But here's the great part about it is you could see I have it going to age 59, and you could see actually I did a 20-year term rider. So at the end of 20 years, it makes it so the term rider drops off. So the most I can put in is 11,823, because the term rider in that situation is like, I don't know, $177 a month is what it looks like. And then after that, from age 60 to 75, the premium is $1,200. That's the base premium. And that's not the cost of insurance. It's just the base premium, which is a whole different conversation explaining what that is. But what you're talking about here, getting in when you look at the non-guaranteed assumptions of a whole life policy, and this is why I tell people, like, I will, there's no guarantees, right? Well, there are guarantees. The guarantees are this column, and the guarantees are not super sexy, obviously. But they're better than an IUL, right? It is what it is, but I don't think looking at this, many people would buy based on the guarantees, right? It just doesn't make any sense. But at the end of the day, we never have once had to rely on a guaranteed year, like this company specifically, and every whole life company that I would ever even contemplate working with, and every participating mutual company I know has paid a dividend every single year for at least 100+ years in a row. And so 120 years in a row for most of them or more. And so when we look at this, though, when we say, what is the difference when you look at a whole life non-guaranteed column compared to an IUL non-guaranteed column? Well, you know what the IUL non-guaranteed column means. It means it's connected to the performance of, the index, because of the way that the policy is participating in the index through options, right? So on the illustration, it's showing the 6.4% long-term on that illustration that you showed me. But we both know that could be up or down every single year based on what it is. And on a down year, that 6.46 is actually going to be 0, right?
Right.
Okay. So, and that the market performance has the impact. It could be up, down, all around, whatever. On an IUL, that's what it is. With the non-guaranteed assumptions of whole life insurance, it's assuming that they're paying 100% of the current dividend scale. So this is where whole life insurance has gotten a really, really bad reputation, okay? And honestly, justifiably so, because of the fact that from 1980, as we just kind of talked about, from 1980 to 2010, interest rates went from 10% all the way down to 0%, right? So they went from 20% to 0%. And so during that period of time, if you bought a whole life policy in the 80s, you were going to look at an illustration similar to this. The numbers were going to be crazy insane because it was going based on the non-guaranteed assumptions of the current dividend scale. Okay? So when you look at this illustration, what it's saying is the current assumption is assuming two things: that the company pays a dividend at the current dividend scale, which right now is 5.2% on this example. Okay? So if in the 80s you looked at this and the dividend scale was 12%, that's going to look pretty sexy. You know what I mean? Because you could buy this policy in 1988 with a 12% dividend, and it's going to run non-guaranteed assumptions at 100% of the dividend scale, and they're going to be like, the life insurance company always pays a dividend. But you have to understand what's the other part of that equation, because yes, that's true. They always have paid a dividend. They likely always will. But the other part of that equation is at what rate, at what scale. And when you're looking at comparing it to highest rates of all time, and you're going to buy, and from every year they're out, the dividends slowly got chipped away at, well, the policy is going to perform worse and worse and worse and worse. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And so millions and millions of people did that, and they bought their whole life policy, and they looked at the illustration, and then they looked at the cash value, 20 years down the road when they finally opened their policy, because they kind of set it and forget it, or 10 years down the road. And then they looked at it and they compared the two, and they're like, what the hell? This is nowhere even near what I was told I was going to have. The problem is agents didn't explain to people how they actually work. You know what I mean? And that's the challenge. Now, right now, we're on the opposite end of this spectrum. You know what I'm saying? Like right now, we're in a situation where, here, I'll just do this. Right now, we're in a situation where
upswing.
Yeah, we hit this route where dividend rates in 1980 or interest rates went down, and now we're going up. And so what happened is, as whole life has underperformed in this market, whole life is going to overperform as we go out of this, right? Because now we're looking at dividend scales at the lowest all-time rates that we've ever seen. Literally, this dividend scale is the lowest we've ever seen. And if interest rates keep going up, well, then whole life dividends are going to follow in accordance. They will go up as well. If interest rates come back down, dividend rates will probably remain level and come down to in the 5 range. Like that just is what it is. There's like whole life insurance policies and life insurance companies in general, they manage risk. They're going to get you the best possible return with the least amount of risk possible. And when you have it in a whole life policy, you're basically just saying, I'm going to let the company manage my long-term risk of my safe money. Now, if you want to take risk in the policy, now you have to go back over, to the policy that we're looking at. And if you say, hey, I want to take risk, well, now you got some money here you could take some risk with. But this is a savings alternative. It's not an investment alternative. That's the biggest difference. What you're trying to do in an IUL is create an investment alternative with a company that doesn't invest very well. They do great at managing risk and getting good returns with the least amount of risk possible, which is not sexy. That's not going to get you massive returns. And if you think that an IUL company, based on using the options, is going to be able to get you a better performance in your policy than they're going to get in their general fund from a long-term perspective, if you really believe that they're going to be able to do that for you, I don't know what to say.
Yeah, I don't want to believe in gamble and lose in the long run.
But do you understand what I just said there, though? Like, the life insurance company right now is getting about 4.5% in their general fund, right? That's what creates the options budget. If the life insurance company was able to take the 4.5% and go risk it and get you 6.4% on a long-term basis, safe and predictably and conservatively, why wouldn't they do that for themselves? You're going from 4.5 to 6.5%. That's a 50% increase in rate of return. So if they could, like, just use like some logic. That is a huge increase in rate of return when you really break it down, as far as the growth of the policies, as far as like the actual return of your money over a long period of time.
How do you verify what their options, what their rate returns are for the company? How do you verify that?
There's all sorts of, there's really expensive subscriptions. Dalbar does reports, all that stuff. It's hard to find, but general funds are not. I mean, they're pretty locked and loaded. There's a really good blog called lifeproductreview.com. It's like 99 bucks a month that you can subscribe to, and he posts a lot of that information. He's like he's probably one of the best product minds in the business. And he's super tapped in with companies. Like, he helps design products for different companies. And yeah, he's just brilliant, like, when it comes to that stuff. And so I would say look at some of his content. And he's got a lot of that stuff posted. But what I would say is, like, when you just look at that, and if you use common sense, like, if the life insurance company is getting 4.5%, and you know, if it's being sold to you that it's conservative and predictable, they could get you 6.4% with no risk. That's a 50% increase in the life insurance company's return. Like, if it were that predictable and that consistent, they would be doing it for themselves, and they're not. And they can't, you know? So I would just say, you know, when you really break it down, it's really easy. I mean, you broke it down. Here's the numbers. What you said before was, I'm going to take the 75, I'm going to take 17 and cover the costs effectively, or 16 and change to cover the costs, and I'm going to live off that. What you did is you reduced that 9%, distribution rate in the IUL to 7% effectively, which is basically what they'd give you in an annuity. But the difference is, if you do it in the annuity, you get the guarantees for the rest of your life. You do it in the IUL, and you still run a massive risk of running out of money.
All right, there is a plan Z. Plan Z is
okay.
build up cash in your IUL policy. You take $100,000 loan, put it by around year 10, put it into year 10 or year 7. Whenever you get to $100,000, put it into an annuity for 10 years. It comes back, and then you use the fixed income option with National Life Group, and use lifetime income option with the annuity. So you
It's not going to work. I mean, you can't take income from an annuity till you're 59 and a half without paying penalty.
Right. So yeah, so the you take out the loan early and put it into annuity, and you wait that 59 years, it comes back to the IUL policy. So around year 60, to get into that 10 years, whereas year 60, you enact the National Life Group lifetime income
benefit rider.
Right, yeah, and then you get the lifetime for annuity. So it comes together to be about, you know, $50,000-$60,000 of lifetime income. You never take out a loan, and other than that, there's only one loan from the IUL that you have to deal with. After that, it's a fixed lifetime guarantee income, and no loans after that.
Bro, to live inside your head. Listen, it's all, you're making it more complicated. Once again, I love the creativity. I love that you're trying to get creative and try to, you know, think about alternative ways that you can make it work. At the end of the day, you're trying to get life insurance companies use each product. Like, the risk with a life insurance company on an annuity is that you live too long. The risk with a life insurance company on a whole life policy or an IUL is that you die too soon, right? And so they're hedging. If you go to any insurance company, they're going to hedge their book of business. They're just going to, like, they're always, especially with annuities, when rates started going up, like these companies will launch annuities and then they'll sell like crazy, and then they have to slow down the sales of the annuity because there's too much. Their book, the balance of their book of business gets out of scale, right? Gets weighted too heavily in the annuity space. So they will literally cut off sales of the annuity products and not allow people to sell them anymore because there's too much risk on the long-term guarantees of the income for them. So think about it like that, is like if they're ever willing or realize that they have to cut off their risk, to me, if you can get in on that while the getting's good, like that's an amazing deal. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I do love indexed annuities, but it's not because of the index portion. It's because of the income riders that are attached to the index annuities, right? And it's the income riders that give you the bonuses and the roll-ups and all these things and the higher guaranteed income for the rest of your life. That's what's up. If you try to like ride up the illustration on an annuity and say, hey, I'm going to take it and then I'm going to have this lump sum and I'm going to pay back the loan in the IUL with a lump sum, well, now you're not annuitizing it. You're not taking guaranteed income for life. And so you're not using the annuity for its max benefit. Because
So
in order to take the max benefit of the annuity, you actually have to turn on the income rider. And the income rider it has to be taken every year in incremental chunks. It's got to be done for the rest of your life. You can't take a big lump sum to pay back the IUL policy loan that had accumulated in the meantime. And I promise you, the annuity, the actual index side of the annuity performance is not going to perform well enough long-term to pay back the loan and beat out the charges and all these different things that go with it. So you're like, use the products for what they're designed for. The product that you showed, the illustration that you showed, is totally fine as long as if you cut your income in half of what you illustrated it at, you'd probably be okay. But is that a number that you're good with? The answer is probably no.
Maybe 50,000.
I mean, it just becomes a risk, and listen, nothing in life comes without risk for the most part. That you just have to decide what's your risk parameters, but I'll tell you, the policy that you showed me, even with your expectations, let me see here.
They do have the 4% lifetime income riders. You just
lifetime income, the LIBOR.
Yeah, so I mean it's based on 120 years. What you have with the cash value you have built in there at the time, so you got to really kind of get the cash value up.
That's the key. It's the time that you turn the income rider on that matters as far as the cash value. But it's 4%. Think about that. Like, why wouldn't you just? Like 4%? Though you can get 7% distribution with an annuity. Stop trying to use an IUL for income and retirement. That's the moral of the story.
But I don't have lump sum to put in right now. I don't have lump sum to put into annuity. I had to pay it like I pay my IUL.
I tell you what, I'm not a big fan of using annuities for accumulation, but if I had to choose putting my money into an IUL or an annuity, I would buy term insurance and then I would fund an annuity monthly. Like a whole life policy. I would buy a term policy to make sure my family was protected, and I would fund an annuity before I funded an IUL. Because at least then you get the protection for your family that is going to end, whatever, at some point in time. But at least then the annuity side, you have the guarantees on the income side.
Why is it not a more popular option?
Well, because I don't know. It could be because annuities typically are not marketed for accumulation. They're marketed for distribution, which rightfully so, because they're not great accumulation vehicles. If you were 50 or 55, they're great because most annuities are designed to have 10-year roll-up periods, right? Like 10-year capitalization phases or whatever, where you give control of your money to the life insurance company. They give you a bonus, they give you a guaranteed return, and then they'll give you a guaranteed income rate based on whatever age you are. And it's all contractually done, but it's all done through riders in the policy, right? And so, you're basically just offsetting the risk of you're creating your own personal pension. That is the purpose of an annuity. That is what you're doing, just really simply. I'm telling you, this IUL thing that you're looking at right here is just, this deal, man. When you're talking about all these things, what you're doing is that 58,000 on this, 885 here is you're basically 58. You're looking at 6.5%, right? Distribution rate. And so when we look at this, like, you're basically, that's what you're doing with the good creative strategy that you have. That's what you're doing. But the problem is, the good part with the annuity is that it's guaranteed. They're giving you that rate and you get it guaranteed. With the IUL, you could probably pseudo manufacture that result the way that you're doing it, as long as the market keeps performing well. Because if the market doesn't perform well, you're going to have negative years by these 75,000 chunks, because you got to pay for the premium, right? And you got to pay for that $58,000 of cash value here that you're taking in income. If there's no growth in the policy, it's going to get reduced and reduced and reduced. And you have a couple of years like that, and it snowballs really quickly against you, because what happens is you take that cash and the net amount at risk stays high. And so then your insurance charges go up as well, unless you go in and you intentionally surrender some of the death benefit. But then you have to figure out, like, is that going to create a mech environment or whatever, right? Not to mention, if this thing does lapse and you have before you're 75, well, then the overloan protection rider doesn't kick in. And you can see here, this is assuming at 75, everything went just peachy keen perfect before you're 75. You only got $335,000 of cash value right there. That's not much of a margin of error. You got a $2,300,000 loan and $335,000 of cash value. That is like a crazy low margin of error, yo. Like, that is really bad. Do you not see that?
Yeah. We'll skip a couple of bad years. Like, the market, it's like a 401k with $1 million in there. You can't draw out every year. You got to skip the bad years, the down years.
Sure, you could do that, but that's not why you're buying this, Is it?
No,
you're buying this because everybody's, and I'm not saying you, because like you and I we haven't talked enough about why you were buying it, right? But let's face it, the way these things are sold online is to avoid that problem. Fair enough?
Right.
So do you see why I get so pissed off about this stuff?
Right. True.
Like this, like the fact is, like, at age 75, you literally have a loan. Your policy loan is $2,321,000, and your net cash value is, your policy loan, that's your accumulated value. So your policy loan is going to be this minus this. So it's going to be $1,900,000. It's still a big freaking number. You know what I mean? And it just goes to show, a couple bad years, you have a couple bad years where you got to pull 58,000, here and here and here. If you got to pull 58,000 out of this 4 times in this time, boom, gone. Boom, lapse. Boom, taxable event on $2 million. 401k is looking pretty good. I mean, it's not really looking good, but it's not as bad. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is the problem. This is why I just try to keep it simple, man. I just try to do whole life, savings alternative, real estate, cash flow, invest for cash flow, take control, only invest in things I control.
What's the income on the whole life product?
What's it? I refuse to illustrate income on a whole life product, because whole life, it's not going to be good. It's just not going to be good.
So what I do, we living off of, you're not living off the income from the whole life. What are you doing
No,
with it?
so I'm using whole life. Here, I'll show you. Uh, I just got to pull it up again. Is that the one? Yep. So in a whole life policy, what I do is we're not, it's not that 12,000 is all we're saving. 12,000 is our safe money. So what I tell people with whole life is to look at it as a bond alternative. It's going to give you bond-like returns, muni bond-like tax treatment, and money market-like liquidity. And so during your working years, I'm looking at buying cash flowing real estate, right? So I'm not trying to do this, and I've got other videos that I've done on this that show utilizing whole life insurance with real estate. Um, so I would save money in this until you have your down payment for your first cash flowing rental property, and then I would leverage it, borrow against it, put it as a down payment for the property, use the cash flow to recapitalize the loan, keep saving my $12,000 of other cash flow, and I would just stack properties and build cash flow from the rental properties. That's why I don't know if you've ever read, you probably haven't read my book, Cash Flow Hacking, but like that's what it's all about.
Mm.
Is whole life is not the investment. Whole life is the savings mechanism that allows you to invest in things.
Okay.
Okay. Now, what it does is it will give you bond-like returns. And so in a world where the 60-40 bond, retirement income portfolio, right? The 60-40 portfolio traditionally used in retirement is dead because the last couple of years, bonds have gone down with the stock market. Bonds have gotten hurt even worse in the stock market in a lot of cases, right? People with bond portfolios. And so the great part is whole life gives you bond-like returns with the zero standard of deviation.
So hold on. If people aren't using whole life for income and a 401k sucks, what are your clients using to live off of in their retirement years?
Cash flow from real estate. They can liquidate real estate and have big chunks of money. I'm not, they have Roth IRAs. They have other income producing assets. Like I would never sit here and tell somebody like this $12,000. If you want to live off the kind of income that you're talking about, I'm not going to sit here and say that $12,000 a year is going to be enough. Like the problem is people don't save enough money. And when we look at the fact is, the biggest issue in our personal finance world is we've all been duped into believing we can just save 10% of our income and that's going to be enough. It's not going to be enough. That's just the reality. So what I would do here is I would say, save up the 12,000 a year, and don't forget, if we're investing in real estate properties above and beyond this, those are going to be creating cash flow. The goal is to have the cash flow from those rental properties be the income that you wind up living off.
Mm.
And then you get the real tax benefits, tax breaks, not tax deductions, but not tax deferrals, but actual tax deductions, right? And you get the benefits of all that. You create cash flow. I show in my book, I write about it, is like every single person starting with nothing. If you just save, and by year 4, you have enough money for a down payment on a house for a rental property, and boom, by year 6, you're going to have a second rental property. By year 8, you're going to have a probably third and fourth. And by year 10, you're going to have 6 or 7 properties. And if you do that, now you have people paying down your mortgage. You have the appreciation of the markets. You have all the benefits of tax from a tax perspective, utilizing depreciation that you get the benefit with the real estate. That's why that you combine whole life with real estate, and it's the biggest no-brainer in the world.
Okay.
But life insurance is not an investment. But what it is here's how you use a whole life policy in retirement. In this situation, 65 years old, you got $643,000. My rule of thumb is get to 7 years of income that you want to use in retirement, 7 years of income in your whole life policy. So now what you're doing is whatever other asset that you have that you're living off, that you're taking higher returns for, on down years, on negative years, you leverage the whole life policy for your income in those specific years only. So we call it a volatility buffer.
Okay. Yeah, that's
Makes
that's a lot
sense?
more. It makes sense. I had real property, man, like 4 one time. I had like an apartment, a fourplex, and it's all gone now. Gave me a lot to think about, man. I was doing it back in the day. I was on that, and then I just sold my last house during COVID. I should have kept that one, and now it's worth like $100,000 more than I paid for it originally.
Mm-hmm.
So I was big into real estate, and I did it with no money. Like I did my VA loan, then I could roll out of the VA loan to conventional use my VA loan again. I took over some properties for the deed,
Yeah.
catch you by foreclosure. Very creative financing, no
Love
money.
it.
Yeah, I was killing it back in the day. It was only like I had like three houses in an apartment
Yeah.
total.
Yeah.
So I was there, man. But it's just tenants are a handful. Very
I always hire property managers, man. Like I'll never manage it personally. Just pay the 10% to a property manager that you know is good and have peace of mind.
yeah. It's very stressful. Go on vacation, you worry about somebody falling. I need to have a real business separate from my personal name. Everything's separated, protected. It's
No doubt.
a lot. And that's why I get sued. Somebody falls or something happens. It's
Oh
stressful.
yeah, you need to create every property in its own LLC, maximum of like 2 properties per LLC, but you need to have it all siloed off. You know, you don't want any interweaving with everything you have going on in your personal life.
All right, man. My wife actually just called me. She'll be home soon. I'll have to like run some stuff by her. I was always I read the book. And I kind of fell in love with the IUL concept. As I learned more about it, I fell in love with the best case scenario versions of them. And I recently just thought about it, like, what if, worst case scenario, what I'm gonna end up with? And
Mm-hmm.
I'll think like, oh man, I might need a plan B here or some other, or just really lower my expectations a lot. I may be a $40,000 loan or a lower loan for life. Um, but I understand it's like there's no guarantees and it may be bad in 20 years the results could be bad or not as good. Definitely not as high as expected. So I'm expecting less.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, man. Well, I mean, I'm glad you reached out. You know, there's not many people that challenge me with the comments that you do on YouTube that are willing to like step up to the plate and actually have a conversation, you know? So like kudos to you for that.
Yeah,
You know,
I'm really trying to help. I mean, like I said, I've been through the bad agent experiences or the not so educated agent experience or just looking for commission. They're supposed to, and when they're helping you, when you help a
yeah,
client, like you're not giving me all the information and realistic expectation not really helping me. It's set me up for failure. And
yeah.
then I had a bunch of questions that the agent couldn't answer. So I had to call the company or company saying call the agent. So I had to like figure it out on my own. I had to build a calculator to run illustrations on my own. He was like, just get your license, get your license. I was like, I don't know my phone.
Yeah, and you can never run a calculator that covers it all because you can't control in the calculator all the fees behind the scenes that could, that could be
Possible.
changing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I set it based on the illustration. If it changes in the future, I'll have to go in and manually say this
Got
year
it.
go up. I can go every year make changes so I can have it set to emulate the illustrations.
Okay.
So I can go back and change every year's interest rate. Um,
Hmm.
I could put zeros in there. Something
Yeah.
I can make it as realistic as possibly. Like you're saying, what if? I can put the what ifs in there, and then go from there and kind of really reduce the expectations down to okay. Say we have 3 zeros or 4 zeros along the way, even with the uncapped index, and the insurance costs, admin cost goes up, fees. What else you were saying? Maybe getting an average of like I don't know. They're saying they get 9% now. How do you justify that? They're saying people with the
Eh,
tax like
It's
saying they get
just
9.
it's just salespeople, man. You're never
Uh,
like it's just salespeople just being dumb.
she said nobody. He said nobody in that company is getting 9% rate of returns. There's no way
Nobody.
possible.
Nobody's getting not long term. Could you get it 1 year here and there? Sure. But you're not buying this for the next year. You're buying this for a 30-year period, 40-year period, 50-year period. Like,
Right.
what's it going to look like That's the thing about IUL. Everybody likes to focus on the next like 10 years or whatever. It's like, and the craziest part about this, man, is like you're talking about, like I'm looking at your thing right now, you're talking about a period of 33 years. IULs are not even 33 years old. So like there's not even been one success case that is there's not, and this is the insane part to me, that all these influencers are out there talking like this is just the way it works. This is what you have to do with IUL. There is not one successful case study of real life example of somebody who's funded an IUL for 20 years and then used it for income for 10 years without it lapsing. Not one success story.
I've asked for that. I recently, cause I was talking about IULs online, and it was like I asked for that. I went back. They asked me for the evidence. Like I don't have the evidence, so I went back and asked every agent I could come in contact with, and they don't have the evidence.
It doesn't exist. It hasn't happened. That's why.
Yeah.
So think about that. Like, do you want to be the guy that tries to like figure that out? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't want to be that guy. I'll rather. So to me, whole life is the financial institution, the financial product that has the most stability over a 100-year period of time with success every single year. Real estate is the most proven track record of success as far as creating wealth and cash flow. Those are the two things that I look at, and it's like, all right, whole life, and then and then real estate. You combine them together, you have magic. That's why I do what I do. That's why I love what I do. You know, the rest of it's just noise.
I hear you, man. I got a lot to think about.
You're good.
Man, these kids took the coffee syrup and then I don't know what he did with it. Spilled out on the carpet.
Oh no!
Yeah,
all right. Well,
they got
good luck. Good luck. Well, reach out anytime, man, if you need anything.
I appreciate your time. I really do. I don't know what I'm gonna do now. To be honest with you. Woo. Yeah, I don't want to be that guy that's 20 down the road. Like, oh well, they told me, they warned me. I need to really do good on this forex trading and become a millionaire.
Well, but that's the thing, bro. That's the thing. That's where you're going to make your money, right? Not the IUL. Don't look at the IUL as the place to maximize your returns. Look at the IUL as a storage tank for your capital to be a better forex trader, to be a better real estate investor, to be a better entrepreneur, to be a better whatever you want to get good at. Your ability to create wealth is on your shoulders to learn that skill for you. Right? Like,
okay, real quick, why can't I infinite bank from this? Why can't I borrow, take money, invest it, put it back in?
Because I mean, that's not what infinite banking is. Go read the book.
That's what you're saying. Okay.
Infinite banking is a structure and a flow of money and understanding the concept and the principle of taking over the banking function of your life. And it has nothing to do with just positive arbitrage and everything. That's not what it's about. And every IUL agent tries to make it seem like that's what it is, but that's not what it is. So you got to read the book. Get the Becoming Your Own Banker book. Read it.
I watch a lot of YouTube videos, man. It seems like they're just pulling money out of even a whole life policy.
I know. Well, there's a lot of bad infinite banking people too, just so you know. A lot of people that misrepresent it as well. So that's the hard part. You just got to read in this situation, you just got to read the book and get it down for yourself and really understand it.
You heard of the Rodriguez guy? He's big on whole life.
Denzel?
Denzel, yeah.
Denzel's a cool kid. Yeah, he's a buddy of mine.
He does infinite banking from whole life. Infinite banking for whole life. He's like, I watched a ton of videos on that.
Infinite banking, you need to use whole life for infinite banking. It's not IUL, but you don't need to, technically speaking, don't need to use whole life. You could use a high yield savings account if you wanted to. I wouldn't advise it. It's just, what is the most efficient vehicle when you look at the guarantees and then you look at all the other elements, like really protecting your human life value and looking at wealth from a generational perspective. That's why whole life insurance becomes the the mechanism that they use for infinite banking because of the guarantees. And at the end of the day, here's the deal. You gotta earn wealth, right? You gotta make your money, and then you gotta build wealth. So you have your job, you go make your money in a job, right? And then you gotta build your wealth. You gotta maybe go do your Forex thing. You're gonna build your wealth in your Forex. And that's where you're gonna create like more revenue and income and wealth. That's where you're gonna create actual wealth for yourself, is through your skills and abilities that you've learned, right? And that's it. The whole life policy and the infinite banking maybe funded the ability. That's where you stored your money to fund your Forex trading accounts and stuff. But at the end of the day, the reason that you have whole life there instead of a savings account is because of the backstop that it gives you and protection it gives you. So you still have the life insurance from a generational perspective. Because if you could have better liquidity than a savings account from a long-term perspective and have the life insurance benefit on the back end, that means you can use your money and still pass money on, right? It's a backstop. It safeguards your human life value as you're growing and learning and building a skill and creating on your own.
I can't do it with IUL. Just borrow some money and put it back.
You can. You're just adding more risk to the equation. And if the function of the policy is adding more risk to the equation, then it makes it a non-optimal place to keep the money.
The risk. So borrow money from a whole life, there's no risk.
It's safer.
Okay.
More predictable. More controllable. More transparent.
That makes sense. Yes. All right, man. To be continued, man. I got back to the dorm.
Good talking to you, man.
Okay.
See you.